Okay, now we're going to get into some deep dive into portfolio engineering. And this is really what a lot of clients would like to know. How do we actually develop the portfolio structures the way we do to do all our wealth enhancement to allow the client to actually end up with more in their pocket? And we're going to talk directly at that. Let's talk about where we are on our continuum here. Rocky talked about the discovery meeting. He talked about investment strategy meeting and how we decide and really kind of pull out of our clients what is most important to them when it comes to investing. Then he got into the first half of the portfolio development from the internal side. Now what I'm going to talk about really gets into the engineering of the portfolio and the stress testing of the portfolio. So let me lay the groundwork, the foundation here. What we do when a client has decided to come on board and we find that there is just this real good fit, we feel we can make a material difference for this client, at that stage, we take the current portfolio that they have from wherever they're coming from, whether it be another broker or another financial planner, or they did it themselves. But what we do is we take their portfolio and we enter it into a program called Portfolio Engines. And Portfolio Engines is very, very dynamic. It allows us to really do stress testing as we put this portfolio together to make sure that we're following those parameters set forth in the investment strategy meeting. So when you look at this screen here, this is a typical screen in Portfolio Engines. And what I'm going to set up here is we've got a individual coming on board who is a moderate investor. They currently have 3 portfolios. And if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that you've got 3 portfolios. One's a New Frontier portfolio, profile risk 3. Now keep in mind that the risk profiles run from 1 all the way up to 6 being the most aggressive. Then in the second portfolio, it's an SSGA profile 3, again, another moderate portfolio. And then the third portfolio is a Wyndham profile 3. Now it's not uncommon that when a client comes to us, if they're a moderate investor, that they would actually have all of their portfolios set up moderate. That's very common. Could be a conservative client, could be aggressive, but it's not uncommon that all the portfolios kind of look the same. They may have different assets in it, but the risk profile is the same. So the first thing that we do is we want to stress test that portfolio. We want to understand, how does it perform in a down market? How does it perform in an up market? So the next part, when you're looking at this slide, right in the center of the slide is a stress test. And in this stress test, we can actually take and make a determination sliding the bar from a negative position all the way to a positive position. In this case, what we're showing is what would happen if the S&P 500 actually had a 41% correction. How would this portfolio respond? Now, right below that slide bar, you see the change in investment of this portfolio. As a moderate portfolio, you wouldn't expect it to go down 41% because it's not aggressive. And we all know the S&P 500 is all equity, so it's an aggressive portfolio. Now, let's take this a little step further. This client has a portfolio of $1 million. And it's divided up in each one of the portfolios, 38, 29, and 33%, equaling 100%. Now, further, the New Frontier portfolio is a Roth portfolio. That portfolio is fully tax-free. That's probably the most valuable portfolio everybody has. Why? Because they don't have to pay any taxes on the growth. That's a good thing. What about the second one? The second one's an IRA. That one is fully taxable, okay? We know that every dollar that grows in there is going to be taxed eventually when it gets pulled out. Then the third one, the third portfolio, is a trust account or a non-qualified portfolio, what we would consider to be tax favored. In other words, you're dealing with capital gains and dividends as opposed to ordinary income like you will with an IRA. So 3 different tax statuses for these portfolios, but they're all invested moderately. And as you can see, the portfolio performance on the downside, the Roth went down a little bit more, the IRA even heavier losses, and then the trust account not quite as much. But we can see how this is performing. Now, what about if the market is going up? So let's take a look at that. Well, if we slide the bar to a 25% gain in the S&P 500, how does the portfolio perform? Well, again, in this case, it's up 14%. All right, that's not bad for a moderate portfolio. Again, you wouldn't expect it to be up as much as the S&P 500 because it's moderate. It does have a component of fixed income in there, which will not perform as well as equities. So knowing that, we understand that if the market was up 25%, this portfolio being 14 is not bad. But is it the best we could do? That's how we're going to compare this portfolio with a well-engineered portfolio, taking into consideration wealth enhancement. Now, again, you've got 3 different tax statuses, 3 different registrations with these portfolios. What we're going to do is change up where the risk is on each one of these portfolios. How would we do that? Well, again, if your Roth account is your most valuable account, we really want that to grow the fastest. And if your IRA has the biggest tax liability, we want that one to maybe have a little bit of a governor on it so it doesn't grow as fast. Now understand, we still want that moderate rate of return that we're looking for. Now, what about the trust account, the non-qualified or tax-favored account? That one we might want to have as a moderate portfolio. So let's take a look at how that would look if we not only ran this program based on asset allocation investing, which is what all the advisors do, but also we take a very close look at asset location investing. Let me explain that. So on this next slide, if you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see that we changed the portfolio up a little bit. We added a Clark Navigator fixed income portfolio. We also added a Dana large cap all equity portfolio. The next thing we did was we changed the allocation to match the tax registration, whether we're trying to slow the growth down or whether we're trying to accelerate the growth. So let's see how we've got this played out. Now the SSGA portfolio, which we kind of like, we kept, that's going to be our moderate portfolio. And we're going to utilize this in the trust account. So this is the tax favored portfolio. Now, the next one is the Clark Navigator. The Clark Navigator, that's a fixed income portfolio. We don't expect that to go up a lot. We don't expect it to go down a lot. But we're going to utilize the IRA account in this portfolio. I really don't care if it has a lot of dividends because no matter what, it's all going to be charged on our tax return as ordinary income because it's an IRA. Now the third account, we're actually going to make this one more aggressive. This is the Roth account. This is the tax-free money. This is the money we want to grow as fast as we can get it to grow. So this is what we call asset location investing. Now, let's take a look again. That slide bar in the center there, the S&P. We're going to show the S&P going down 34%. What happens to the portfolio if the S&P drops 34%? Well, let's take a look at it. As a whole, the portfolio goes down 23%. But let's take a deeper dive. The SSG portfolio, moderate portfolio, just like before, in this scenario went down about 22%. That's your trust account. Now let's look at the Clark Navigator. This is your IRA account. That one, because it's now very conservative, only went down 1%. All right, but you might be saying, but that's my IRA account. Yes, it is. Stay with me here. Now the next portfolio is your large cap equity portfolio. This one went down a whole lot more because it's all equities. It's going to work more like the S&P 500. This is your Roth account. Now again, you might be thinking, yeah, but I don't want my tax-free money to go down that much. All right, work with me here, because I'm going to show you how this is actually going to be in your favor long term. So now we've stress tested the first portfolio on the negative side and the positive side. We've now stress tested the new portfolio on the negative side. Let's see how it works on the positive side. Again, let's say the S&P 500 goes up 25%. Well, your trust account, again, still a moderate portfolio, went up 16%. Okay, I like that. The Clark Navigator income portfolio, which is your IRA account, only went up 4%. Remember, this is your taxable account. The next account, the Dana Large Cap, this is your Roth account. This one actually went up 25%. Again, this is an all equity portfolio. Now, take a look at where the gains are coming from. And keep in mind also how many times the market goes up before it actually goes down. And I'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. But for this, your trust account went up nicely. Okay, that's tax favored. I like that. Your IRA account, which is fully taxable, didn't go up much at all. And your Roth IRA, which is fully tax-free, actually gained 25% in that account. That's a big deal. Now, I said I would talk a little bit about the market. The reality is the stock market on average goes up 3 years for every 1 year down. So I don't mind if my Roth account goes down on 1 year if I'm gaining 3 years on the upside. Because long term, it's still an aggressive portfolio. It's going to have a higher target rate of return. In this case, we're targeting an 8.5% rate of return in that portfolio, whereby my IRA account, I'm only targeting about a 3.5 to 4% rate of return. Again, that's my most dangerous account, if you will, when it comes to taxes, because it is fully taxable. Now, the other thing I want you to keep in mind is that relative to how this portfolio is working, we know that if I get these nice increases in my Roth account, I get to keep all this money. If my IRA, which is again fully taxable, is on the low side, I'm not growing that ticking time bomb, if you will, of a tax mess. I'm keeping control of it at this point. And then obviously our non-qualified account is tax favored, so that's going to be somewhere in between. So if you think about it, when we average the rate of return, the rate of return might be the same or better than that previous portfolio. But the difference is you, the client, get to keep more of the money because the growth was really focused on the tax-free or the tax-favored, not the fully taxable. Okay, let's move on. Now, I'm looking at the portfolio engines again, and now we're going to do a little bit more of an analysis on the returns. So the new portfolio that we put together, if you look at that center graph there, that's our return by strategy. It shows you that black dot, which is the portfolio we have put together, the new one that was engineered, is actually performing better than the portfolio that the client came on with. And that's that blue diamond right below it. Also, it shows you how each one of the portfolios are working from a risk return standpoint. Now, when you're looking at this portfolio, again, you can see that the average rate of return. So now we're going to go down to the bottom part of this chart that shows the current period, 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year returns. You can see your Roth account is over a 10% rate of return. That's your tax-free money that's at work for you. Then you go to the Clark Navigator. This is your taxable income. Well, that's only at about a 2.2%. Again, I'm not really concerned with that because that's my biggest tax problem right there. And then when I look at the moderate portfolio, the 10-year return there is about 5.1. When you blend all these together, the 10-year average rate of return is 7.46. Well, how does that relate to the previous portfolio? Well, this is how it looks. Again, if you look at the bottom part of the chart, the previous portfolio that we inherited, their annualized return is sitting at about 6.15%. If you look at our portfolio, the one we've engineered, that's averaging about 7.35. And again, where is most of the growth? It's in your tax-free or tax-favored account. Now, if you look at the next column over where you see the volatility, the previous portfolio, though a little bit less volatile, ultimately did not give the rate of return that the client would really need long term. So this is how we look at each one of the portfolios. If you look at the risk return chart in the center, that black dot is the overall portfolio's risk return. The blue diamond right in the crosshairs there is the old portfolio. And then when you look at the 3 dots, the other dots, you've got one on the left side, that's your IRA, performance and risk. The one closest to the center mark there is your trust account. And then the one that's over on the upper right side of the chart is the Roth account. So we can actually analyze each one of the portfolios, see how they work in relationship with each other, and compare it to other portfolios to see what is going to work best for our client. So that brings us back to this slide, the wealth management part of this. We've got a lot of tools that we bring to bear for our clients to get them the best long-term net rate of return that they can get. I've said this many times, Rocky has said it many times. You know, getting a good rate of return is important. There's no question about that. But the advanced planning is what takes it to the next level. The advanced planning is what allows you to keep the money in your pocket. So that takes us to the next slide. Again, we've talked about the discovery meetings. We've talked about the investment strategy meetings. We've taken a deep dive into the portfolio development. From there, what happens? Well, then we have to implement. Now we're going to implement the new portfolio. We're either going to dollar cost average if the stock market's a little on the choppy side, or if we're in a full bull market, we might go all in, or some kind of variation of the two. But we want to get into the market in the new portfolio as soon as possible. The next step is the portfolio management throughout the years. We want to make sure we're constantly rebalancing this portfolio back to target to make sure that the downside threshold that we've determined in the investment strategy meeting will not be breached. So that's all done internally as we're working through the process. Next is the review meetings. When we get into the review meetings, we might find life changes that go on. It could be that you're looking to buy a new house, move from one state to another. Could be that you've got someone going to college. Could be an illness or a death in the family. Well, this may take us right back on this continuum to the discovery meeting and then the investment strategy, portfolio development, and so on. Something else we say here a lot at Daniel Krug and Associates. We are tactical wealth managers. We not only do tactical when it comes to the way the investments are put together, but we're tactical in every aspect of what we do, whether it be the investment consulting, or it's the tax management, or it's the estate planning, or possibly the protection. In other words, liability. How do we protect from any kind of liability we might have out there? So for our firm, we're tactically managed in every aspect. And we believe that the way today is moving so fast, if you do not have a wealth management firm that is tactically managing everything that's most important to you, you probably aren't getting as much out of what you're trying to accomplish in life as you could. So this is what the investment engineering is. This is what wealth management is for us.